All right. Charlotte Perkins Gilman, page 74. The yellow wallpaper. What's the story about?
Stories about a woman and her husband. She's in the beginning of the story. She seems slightly ill in the beginning, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. She in the beginning, I felt that she wanted to be romantic with her husband. She wanted to get away with him. But she had a condition, with nervous condition. It was called. She called it anyway.
Was she always crazy?
No.
No. Well, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So you guys think?
She didn't feel me. She didn't feel her.
Do you think that her husband pushed her to be crazy?
I think he just kept telling her she is.
I think he helped contribute to it by ignoring it.
He's not trying to listen to her.
But of course, in the time period, they weren't. Mental illness wasn't really checked on, and if it was, you were tortured.
All right. Who's telling the story?
She is. She is the woman, his wife.
How reliable is she as a narrator?
She's not really because she just looked at you. I don't think she's very reliable. For God's sake, she thinks the mental room is a nursery.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that someone that sees a woman in the wallpaper and ends up, doing what she does and acting like she does, she's probably not the most. I mean, it does happen to her, just like Reunion happened to the boy, but she's crazy. And so she's probably not very reliable, right? We're probably not going to believe very much of what she says just because she, in fact, is crazy. So why would you believe a crazy person? So, yeah, okay. Who is the antagonist in this story? John, possibly the wallpaper, right? Now, if looking into this, well, first of all, this has been seen really as two different things. Traditionally, it's been read as a feminist critique because she has no voice, right? I mean, she is controlled and dominated by her husband, and isolated to a room and not allowed to see her child or anything like that. So traditionally this has been read as a feminist short story or with a feminist critique. But thanks to, what's that Scientologist? Not Cruz. It's the one that Cruz had it out with. No, it's that chick. Blue Lagoon. Was it Blue Lagoon? Oh, come on. Yeah, Brooke Shields. Yeah, okay, thank you. And you. Not in a bad way. Not freaky or anything. Okay, so, yeah, Brooke Shields, right? She went on TV and she had a book come out about that mother postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that? Every single woman that had a child had postpartum depression because Brooke Shields had postpartum depression. So every single celebrity that had a child after Brooke Shields, right, they all went through the same thing. They all wanted to drown their kid. They all wanted to jump out a window. They all wanted to... Not just being dismissive. I know that sounds condescending, which it kind of is a little bit, but surely, I mean, that does exist, right? Postpartum does occur, and this story, since it's become so popular in the past, or so, I don't know, discussed in the past several years, that has often been, looked, this story has been attributed to that as well, because she has a kid in the story, right? Is she allowed to see the kid? Why? and she gets so nervous around the kid, right? So that's very, I don't know much on postpartum, but I mean, seems kind of the deal, something to do with the baby or after. So you can kind of look at it through that slant as well. At the beginning of the story, we see some foreshadowing very early on. She says, a colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say a haunted house. Probably not a good thing. Still, I will proudly declare there's something queer about it. Again, not a good thing. But what does John do? Yeah, John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that. Yeah, why is that expected? Yeah, I have these bad vibes about the house, so my husband laughs at me, but it's fine. I expect that. Not getting some. I mean, we know from reading the story, but going straight into the story right now, this kind of seems. Okay, that's kind of odd relationship. All right, and we find out a little more about her and John. On 75 says, if a physician of well, first of all, she says, I do not believe I am sick, but what can one do? Well, apparently, I mean, people can do things, but apparently she can't, and she doesn't think that she's sick, but it doesn't matter because she doesn't have a voice. If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do? My brother is also a physician and also of high standing, and he says the same thing. What's the problem here?
Both of them see the same thing.
Well, that's okay. What's the other problem from the other? I mean, looking at it from the other point of view. Would it not be a conflict of interest to treat your wife or to have your brother treat you as a physician? You think you might be a little biased, right? You think you might be a little skewed to see one thing?
Yeah, and not to mention, even if something was mentally wrong with her and they knew it, out of kindness for their family, I don't think they would tell her about it. She's insane if she is, because then she'd be locked away forever and tortured.
Right. But there's two sides to that as well. Well, first of all, it is a conflict of interest to treat your wife as a primary physician, or for your brother to be your primary physician. Now, they did. Now, if they were to admit that, or if they were to say or admit that there was something wrong with her, that she was crazy, like he was saying, she'd be locked away, which she is locked away, but in a nut house and be tortured. Which, of course, not tortured, maliciously, but just electroshock therapy, just trying to make her better. And so they're doing that for her benefit and for the benefit of the family. But also, he's a physician of high standing. These people are of a higher social class. They're not middle class people. To have a nut job in the family reflects poorly upon the family. So you can either look at it one of two ways. They're either trying to protect her physically, right, and the family, and not suffer that torment that she would have to endure, at an asylum, or they don't want to suffer the embarrassment. Now, but either way, they are not going to want to admit the problem, or definitely not try to treat it. And so she can't do anything, right? She's forbidden from exercise or anything. But she says, personally, I disagree with their ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work would do me good. She has her own thoughts. She just doesn't have her own voice. But what is one to do? What could she do? Disagree? She has no, she can't take any action on what she would like to do. On 76, talking about John, says, he is very careful and loving and hardly lets me stir without special direction. How does John treat? I mean, is John a bad guy?
No.
No.
How does he treat her?
Treat you like a child.
You have to give a direction and guidance.
Yeah, he treats her like a child. Like a child and or like a pet, right? Or like property. Yeah. So he does love and care about her, but he treats her in a loving way, she says. I mean, we can't really say too much because we don't get his point of view. You know, we don't know. We got her point of view. But he treats her like a child. He treats her like property and something to be protected, but not to be respected enough to have a voice. And again, that's not to say that because he's a bad guy and he doesn't respect women. That's just the time period, right? I mean, that's what this story is about.